Hi, my name is Danielle Hanson. I will be teaching a fourth grade math lesson on adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. This is a fourth grade standard, Common Core 2.1.4.C2, which is build fractions from unit fractions by applying and extending previous understandings of operations on whole numbers. This is also adding and subtracting of fractions with like denominators it falls under the anchor and eligible content within the realm of this standard. My formative assessments of this lesson would be question and answer throughout the lesson, which will be a pair deck, and the students will also complete two worksheets, one within a breakout room and small group, the other within for homework. Then there will also be an exit ticket at the end of the lesson. Students who have mastered this skill will add and subtract the numerators only, keeping the denominators the same and not adding or subtracting those. Then applying adding and subtracting fractions in real life situations, real life problems. The teaching strategies that I will use to help students to become more successful, especially ones who have learning targets or IEP goals or skills. I will obviously remediate and offer help as needed throughout the lesson. Then at the conclusion of the lesson, when there's some free time to do homework or independent work, those students that are struggling or that still need a little bit more one-on-one help due to some IEP goals or computation errors, things that they just might need extra help with, I would pull them into a breakout room or into a small group and work with them. The activities and tasks that I'll be using, I will be obviously using a pair deck. The students, I will go through the lesson, explain what things are. We will do examples together where I do and show and model. Then we will do together, and then eventually they will do on their own with the worksheet within small groups, the worksheet for homework, and the exit ticket. The breakout rooms, like I said, would be there for small group or students that need additional help after the lesson. The resources that I'm using is the pair deck. We will have the exit ticket, the worksheets, which will be done on Kami, and there will be virtual fraction strips and virtual fraction circles. So the question and answer responses will also be part of the activity. Students that have IEPs or that need assistive devices, I would always, as I always do, is confer with check the IEP to see what they need, and that's something that would have been established at the beginning of the school year, and talk with the special ed teacher if there's any questions that I would have as far as adaptations need to be made. So the assistive devices that I'm using here, not only for those special ed students, but for regular ed students, is the visuals of the fraction bars and the fraction strips and the fraction circles, just to so they have that visual. They can see why we add and subtract only the numerators, keeping the denominators the same. This is students, when we get to this lesson, this would not be a new thing working with fractions and numerators, denominators. This would be something that we had been talking about, finding equivalent fractions previously. So this is just to build on that. So I'll get started with the lesson. So good morning, fourth grade. We are going to do a pair deck today with adding and subtracting fractions. So I'll give you a minute to join. At this point, they join. And you can see today what we are doing today is we are adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So there's going to be a few words that you're going to need to know. And I know that you know these, we've been talking about them, but I just want to review them again. We have, and of course, a fraction is part of a whole, and it's represented as A over B or A slash B when we're typing this out. The numerator is the top number of a fraction. The denominator is the bottom number. Remember, I always talk about that denominator down means it's down below the line, and that denominator shows the total parts. Our common denominator is a shared number, bottom number, of two or more fraction or fractions. The sum, now let's think about this. Sum is the result of adding two or more numbers, and a difference is the result of subtracting one number from another number. Remember, we always subtract the small number from the large number. Small number is taken away from the large number. So we're going into using fractions, and we've been talking about fractions. We know that fractions are everywhere. Math is everywhere. And we've talked about this before, but again, let's review. Understanding how to add and subtract fractions. It really helps with cooking, or if you're doing crafts or solving any everyday problems. We see it a lot. I know a lot of you, we've talked about how you might bake cookies or help mom or grandma or dad, brother, sister, somebody, you help them cook. So let's think about how can you use fractions when baking cookies for a party? So I have your sentence starter there, and let's go ahead and start. When baking cookies, I can use fractions too. So finish your sentence. Make sure you pay attention to capital letters, punctuation. So go ahead and start putting those answers in your Pear Deck. We use fractions. I can use fractions too. Good, Cohen. Yes. Micah, you said that. Good. Jaden. Awesome. Your answers are coming in. Good. You use fractions to measure. Yes. And remember, we're got to focus on how we go to use our fractions. Yes. Measuring cups, the teaspoons, the tablespoons. Good job. Yes. Now, in this lesson, again, you're going to learn how to add and subtract fractions that have a common denominator. Remember, this means that the bottom number in each fraction is the same, which means it's easier to combine them. We're going to use visuals such as pictures, fractions bars, fraction circles to better understand how fractions work together. After the lesson, you can use the addition and subtraction of fractions when cooking, sharing items, making math useful in daily life. So to understand fractions, we need to explore the parts of a fraction and how they can help in addition. So in the fraction 3/8, 3 is our numerator, it's the top number, 8 is our denominator, it's the bottom number. The 8 shows the whole is divided into 8 equal pieces. Now, when you add fractions, you first add your numerators. Only add your numerators, and you keep your denominators the same. Visuals like number lines and fraction bars or strips help to illustrate the concept. So we're going to take a look at fraction bars and strips here, and we are going to do 1/4 plus 1/4. So you can see how many 1/4 do we have there. Somebody want to put a hand up in there? Elijah? We have 2, right. So we would first add our numerators together, and we would get 2, and we would keep our 4 the same. So 1/4 plus 1/4 would be 2/4. Good. Now, again, adding fractions with visuals. We just did one, but we're going to do another one. Visualizing fractions helps you to understand how they combine when they have the same denominator. Imagine you have 2 pies. So this is a little bit different. We're not using fraction bars. We have 2 pies. We know pies are a circle. So each pie is cut into 3 slices. And if you eat 1 slice from each, you've eaten 2 slices. So let's take a look at our fraction circles. So I have our fraction circles divided into 3 pieces each. So here's our 2 pies. And if we eat 1 piece from there, first pie, and 1 piece from the second pie, we've taken out 1/3 and 1/3. That's 2 slices. So 1/3 and 1/3, we've taken out 2 1/3s. So 1/3 and 1/3 would be 2/3. Now, what is the total when we are adding 1/2 plus 1/2? So I'm going to show you a visual of this before you write your answer, before we talk about it. So we're going to do 1/2 plus 1/2. So what would we get there? How many? We have 1/2 plus 1/2. Blaze, we add 1/2, add your numerators, 1/2 plus 1/2, our top numbers. 2 halves, or 2 over 2, right? We would get 2 over 2. Now, as we've talked about before, when we have 2 over 2, 3 over 3, 4 over 4, 5 over 5, 10 over 10, 12 over 12, what does that always equal? When we see that right there on those fraction bars, what does that equal? Sarah? Yeah, honey, it equals 1 whole. Equals 1 whole. Good. Yes, remember, 4 over 4, 5 over 5, it equals 1 whole. Good job. So, let's go on to our next one. Now, we're going to try it together. Going to try it together. And how do you add 2/5 and 1/5 using the same denominator? So we are going to add, and we have a sentence starter there. To add 2/5 and 1/5, I will first add, what do we add first? So go ahead and write that in there. What are the 2 numbers that we're going to add first? Good, Luther. Yes. Elijah. Good, Brianna. Awesome. Braylon, Michael, Garen. Good job, kids. Jaden, Levi. Good. Yes. Yes. Zavon, Luther. Awesome. Good. Yes, we would add 2/5 plus 1/5. We would get 2 plus 5, 2 plus 1, excuse me, 2 plus 1 first. So let's look at this on our fraction strips. And we are going to do 2/5. And then we're going to add 1 more 5th in there, 1/5. So when we add those up, how many 5ths do we have? Mason. We have 3, right? So 2/5 plus 1/5 would be 3/5. Very good. Yes. Let's go on to our next one. Okay, so this one you're going to try. What is the sum of 3/10 and 4/10? And write your answer as a fraction. Now remember, think about the word sum. You see it's in bold. It's one of our words that we are, our keywords that we're focusing on. So what would be the sum of 3/10 plus 4/10? What does it mean? Think about sum. There's either sum or difference. Luther, what does it mean when we find a sum? Do we have to add or subtract? Yes, we have to add. Good. So go ahead and add 3/10 plus 4/10. Put that in your answer. Let me see those come up. Ariana, yes. Good. Alicia, think about adding those numerators, those top numbers, 3 plus 4. Good. Yes. Blaze, Cohen, Karen, they're coming in. Yes. Yes. David, awesome. Wonderful. Yes. 3/10 plus 4/10 is 7/10. And again, we could see that on the fraction strips. We would do 3/10. And then we would put in another 4/10. And we would get an answer of 7/10. Well done. Well done, kids. Any questions so far? Confused? Okay. So we need to do the same thing with our subtraction. With subtraction, you need to know that fractions represents parts of a whole. When fractions, again, have the same denominator, it makes subtraction easy because you only subtract the numerators. Only subtract the numerators. So you can use what you learned about subtracting to solve real world problems that involve sharing and comparing parts of a whole. So it is at this point where I would continue with the lesson. I would then have the students, when we go through the rest of the pair deck, before we do an exit ticket, we would continue with the I do, we do, you do, and then they would do this worksheet with partners in a breakout room, and I would pop in and help, and they would come back into the lesson and complete the few questions that I have as the exit ticket. And they would then have the next worksheet for homework. So this is, if they were still having trouble with the lesson, I would, again, there are some students that have some calculation, some problems with some math calculation. I would, again, work with them in a more one-on-one or small group setting to help them if they would need it with the addition and subtraction, making sure that I emphasize with them, keeping those denominators the same. The one thing that students often have a misconception on is when they are adding or subtracting fractions, especially with adding, they want to add the denominators. I mean, I've seen that so much. So that would just be something that would being reiterated, and I would continue to work with them on that and getting them to where they are more independent. If I had to pull more examples or worksheets, again, I would find resources to help them using the fraction strips or using the fraction circles, whatever the case may be that they would need in order to become successful. So thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.